www.slu.com. Call the studio at 572-9710 or WhatsApp 287-0971 or Rev Up. Office numbers are 572-0383 and 572-0215. Rev Up St. Lucia, the alpha of radio.
Join the United Workers' Party this and every Thursday on Rev Up St. Lucia 97.1 FM for an educational and informative program, Meet the Opposition. Participate in exciting discussions from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Be in the know every Thursday on Rev Up St. Lucia 97.1 from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
It's now time for Meet the Opposition, hosted today by Lenard Spider Montoute. Mr. Montoute, a very good morning to you.
And good morning to you, Andre. Good morning to all our listeners, whether they're listening to us live on radio or via live stream. I want to wish you a special good morning and to say to you, welcome to Meet the Opposition. Today, as Andre told you, I'm your host, sitting in for Nancy Charles, and I'm hoping that we're going to have a very interesting, a lively and participatory program, because as always I will be opening up the lines where you can call in to make your contribution. We have a number of subjects that we will touch on today, and of course when you're calling in, I will not be limiting you as to what you wish to speak on. Of course, you may call in to make suggestions, to ask questions, or simply to make a contribution. And this morning I will first start off with of course, Meet the Opposition. We are an opposition political party, and we are concerned and interested in what happens on the political landscape here in St. Lucia. And I want to just take a look at governance in general, what passes for government in our country, the things we accept from the elected officials that we have who serve us, and how it either positively or negatively affects us. Now, let's talk about government. I mean, we have two major political parties here in St. Lucia, the United Workers' Party and the St. Lucia Labour Party. And every 5 years we have an election where we get to choose which team that we want to elect as our government to take care of our affairs for the next 5 years. Currently, we have in office the St. Lucia Labour Party, the SLP, and after 3.5 years, I think it is, a fairly reasonable amount of time where we can say make a judgment on their performance so far, because we are going into the 4th year, and after that, it's all about elections. And at the same time, when the time comes talking about election, for you to make a decision, for you to determine whether the SLP should continue or whether you should change the government and bring back the United Workers' Party, I would like to know that, this is based on sound judgment and analysis on your part, and not simply based on party affiliation, loyalty and allegiance. And so, at the end of the day, we want to know that we have a government that will make our lives better, advance our country in terms of its development, and, generally speaking, improve the living standards for the people of the country. And so I will look at both parties, and I'm hoping that when the time comes, what you will do is look at the last term of the United Workers' Party, look at this term of the St. Lucia Labour Party, and judge predominantly on performance. Of course, there will be plans advanced for the coming 5 years by both parties. You should take that into consideration as well. However, as you know, that is a time for promises, in some cases outlandish promises. You know that some of them know that they cannot keep, but they make them anyway to impress you and to influence your decision as to who you should vote for. But I'm hoping that you're sufficiently savvy, you have learned enough over the years about politics and politicians, so that you know that you cannot go solely by what you hear, but that you can judge by performance, because I believe in the saying that the best indication of a person's future performance is their past performance. And so let's talk about performance. I mean, if we were to look at the major areas of concern that a government is responsible for in a country, for me, first and foremost is security. That is law and order, security in your country. The next very important one is health. I mean, there are all kinds of saying about health that, without health you have no wealth, and even if you have wealth, you cannot enjoy your wealth. And, they talk about when it comes to health, prevention is better than cure. And, I also say that prevention is cheaper than cure as well, because healthcare throughout the world is a very, very expensive commodity. And if you cannot afford it, sometimes you end up having to perish. And of course, we know of the many cases where people go around literally having to beg for assistance when they are afflicted with some kind of disease or another. And so, we are a poor country with very limited resources, and that something has to be done to ensure that our healthcare can be properly financed. And I will touch on that a little in the program. The next thing is education. If you do not have an educated people in terms of your productivity, your economy, and so on, your country will not be doing so well. And so education is very important. Then comes many other aspects of life. And, you look at things in the area of infrastructure, because you need roads, you need water, you need electricity, you need all of those things to enable a decent standard of living in the country. Of course, work, people have to get employment to be able to provide for themselves and their families and so on. And all of those things are the responsibility, by and large, of our government. They play a part, they play a role. That is not to say that you too do not have a responsibility, because very often we sit back and we rely on government, we blame politicians for just about everything, whereas there are lots of things that we can do. And I will also touch on the things that we can do to help ourselves as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if I am to start off with, let's say, infrastructure, these are the tangibles that politicians talk of most. I don't think it's the most important, but these are the most, prevalent, most obvious, things that you can touch that are highlighted in the course of the discourse during an election, especially. And we know that, for example, the last administration, of course, they would have, within the 5 years that they were in office, and of course, as a person who was a member of that government, part of the cabinet, I quickly remind people something that they have forgotten, that in effect, in reality, we pretty much had just 3 years, because 2 years were practically taken away by COVID. And the country was shut down for most of that time, and very little was happening in the economy. And many of the plans that we had as a government had to be shelved, and so on. However, I must say proudly that there were some accomplishments during that time. We were able to, start, in some cases, complete some of the projects that we had in mind that we promised that we would have done. But however, some of those projects came to completion just about the time when our term ended, or were not totally complete, but just needing some little, finishing touches and so on. However, we have seen a development in our politics here in St. Lucia where a succeeding government, and before I continue, let me just say, while governments may change, government is continuous, because we have to keep the country going, we have to keep the country running, and we have to continue taking care of ongoing matters as a government. So the fact that a government changes does not mean that everything that obtained before has to be squashed, has to come to a halt, and that we have to go in a totally different direction. Of course, that is not to say that I do not recognize that a new government may have their own policies, their own ideas, their own plans, and that may necessitate changing direction in certain cases. But if that is the case, I think the people of the citizens of the country are entitled to know, are supposed to be given an explanation so that they can be clear in their minds as to what obtains. Now, I will start with a few projects that I am personally familiar with, given the fact that in the last UWP government, I was Minister of Social Transformation, and the Human Resource Centers and Community Centers fell under my portfolio. I am aware that in a number of communities, community centers were built, new community centers were constructed. Some of them were just about completed towards the end of the term, some of them not quite, but almost 100% complete. And let me just mention, for example, in the community of Blanchard in Mico South, there is a community center that is completed. In the community of PI in Soisel, Saltebus, there is a community that is a center that is complete. And again, in Roblo, that is also in Soisel, a community center that is completed. And Bexon, there is also a community center that is completed. Now, I mentioned those community centers, and you ask yourself why. Please pay attention. I want you to note that each one of those projects find themselves in constituencies that are held by the opposition, except for Bexon, that is held by the government. But of course, it was held by Guy Joseph, and we know the relationship between Guy Joseph and the St. Lucia Labour Party. And so, sad to say, none of those community centers have been opened to date. Now, figure this. Projects that were completed over 3 years ago. Up to now, more than 3.5 years on, the St. Lucia Labour Party government has not found it fitting to open those projects and allow the use of those projects by the citizens of those communities. Now, what is the plausible explanation for a situation like this, other than what I consider to be outright political victimization? I mean, the people of Micoud South voted for Alan Chasney, and we know that the Labour Party is fond of trying to obliterate everything associated with Alan Chasney, including Alan Chasney himself, which, of course, I think they better come to terms with the reality that Alan Chasney's presence on the political landscape has everything to do with the will of the people as opposed to what they desire. Then you have in Swazel Saldibus, a constituency held by the Honorable Bradley Felix, again a member of the United Workers' Party. In PI and in Roblo, those community centers remain closed. Political victimization. Now, let me just say, you're not doing any harm to Bradley Felix. You're not doing any harm to Alan Chasney. You are hurting the people of the community who could have been making use of those centers for educational reasons, for social reasons, for all kinds of different reasons that community centers serve in a community. Now, this is a government that is priding themselves on saying that they care about people and they're putting people first. These are the kinds of projects that facilitate people, the people that you talk about putting first, but you have those projects closed without any explanation. I would like to call on the government to change that approach, because like I said, you're not hurting Bradley Felix, you're not hurting Alan Chasney, you're hurting the people of the constituency. And if it's your intention to punish them because they express their democratic free will and right to vote for who they think will be their better representative, and you feel that you must take punitive action against them, I'm saying to you, that is not democratic. In a democratic society, we have to respect the wishes of the people. And so, I'm calling on the government, I'm calling on the Minister of Social Transformation, Joachim Henry, to please desist from that sort of victimization and open up the community center, because there are two things at play here. One, the people have been deprived the use of those centers, and secondly, you are putting the resources, the limited resources of this country, the funds that is derived from our tax-paying public, you are putting it to waste. Because with those buildings just remaining closed, and I mean, I don't think it's a secret to anyone that a building that is unutilized deteriorates more rapidly than one that is in use. So what you are doing by not using the building is squandering limited, scarce resources, and at the same time depriving the people of a resource that they can put to use for their benefit. Now, Honorable Joachim Henry, I want to remind you that in the community that you represent in Bexon, that is part of Castries Southeast, there is a community center. I understand it was built by Guy Joseph, but it does not belong to Guy Joseph. Guy Joseph didn't build it for himself. It was built for the people of Bexon and his environs. Please, desist from that practice that because it was done by your opponent, you're not going to, have anything to do with it, that you're going to discontinue it. Please open up the community center. I heard the excuse that there are too many toilets in the in the community center. I don't know if that's one of the reasons why you're not opening it. But sir, I have been to that center. It is an impressive facility that I'm sure the people of the community can put to use. So here's an appeal to you on behalf of the people. Stop that political vindictiveness. Let us rise above the partisan politics and do for the people what the people are entitled to, what the people deserve. I want to also point out.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, Andre.
Why would a sitting government make the opposition look good in the eyes of the people? Don't you think that's a natural reaction to stymie projects and so on started by the previous administration?
Okay. Yes, it is. But we have to go against that natural tendency and look at the bigger picture. We are a country with limited resources, and if you're truly in the interest of the people, you would forget the narrow partisan political interests and look at the interests of the people instead. Because at the end of the day, Andre, it is in some cases donor funds, but in most cases it's our taxpayers' dollars that go to building those facilities. And those facilities are for the same people that you claim that you want to represent and you want to do good for. So why deprive them in the name of politics because you perhaps think that, okay, if the people are enjoying the benefit of the use of those facilities,
it'll give you an advantage.
And it will give an advantage to the opponent. I mean, I think that's a narrow view to take. And if you want to score points, do positive things to score points. Do not stymie, as you said, the work of your predecessor and to deprive the people of what truly they should be enjoying and that they're entitled to.
But wouldn't you agree that this has been happening for eons on both sides?
Well, I mean, I do not want to say that the UWP has not practiced it. I can speak for myself. I don't engage in that behavior. I was in politics for 20-something years. I was in Parliament for 2 terms, and I cannot be accused of having done that. There are projects that were earmarked or started by my predecessors that I continued. And so I think that is, but I'll find a way to get my kudos and to get my credit. You understand what I'm saying? Even if I said, well, you could not have completed it and it took me to complete it, whatever.
Right.
But you find a way to get your mileage. I understand as politicians, we do try to get our mileage. But the people are not stupid. I think people can discern for themselves right from wrong, good from bad. And, I think you're hurting yourself more than you're hurting the opposition when you do things like that. Because the people are seeing that you are depriving them. They're not thinking of you doing anything to Guy Joseph, Bradley Felix, or Alan Chasney. You're depriving them of a resource that is available, but denying them the use of it.
Now, it's interesting you said you don't practice this sort of behavior, and I'm happy to hear you say that. But in the past, you've heard people who've criticized your party and say, well, others were doing it, right? So how does the party address this issue? Okay,
well, you see that excuse, as if, one of the things we do here quite a lot, and I think that's a cheap excuse, of scapegoating and, avoiding the real issue. Well, all parties are the same. All politicians are the same. All of them do it. Well, let us assume that is so. It has to come to an end at some point. So let's stop it now. Now, you'll tell me this convenient.
Why now?
It's convenient for me to say so because my party is in opposition. But, it has to stop somewhere. And I do not know that the UWP that I was a part of actually deliberately practiced this. For example, you have the St. Jude's Hospital, where the previous government decided to go with the old hospital. But a study was carried out where we looked at the project, and it was determined that the building that was built in 1940 was not suitable for the purpose of a hospital to the standard that we wanted to provide for St. Lucian's. And so when you consider the cost and the fact that, in terms of retrofitting, the amount of money that would have to be spent, the amount of work that would have to be done, and still the fact that you are starting off with a structure, you still wouldn't get 100% what exactly it is you set out for. In our wisdom, we thought the better thing to do would be to construct an entirely new hospital. That would have been cheaper, and at the same time, you would have gotten exactly what you want. You could design it for the purpose that it was intended for, which is that of a hospital. Of course, we were thinking of having a modern state-of-the-art hospital, even to include a helipad on the top of the hospital and so on, which are the amenities and facilities that you find in modern hospitals today. And we think that that is what the St. Lucian public deserve, the people of the South deserve, and so we went in that direction. So it wasn't a case of simply abandoning the old hospital because the SLP decided that's where they were going. Of course, the question can be asked, after we had gone and been so advanced with the new hospital that they referred to as the box, and by the way, there are many boxes around the world, Andre.
And by the way, can you explain to us what is meant by the box? We've heard this.
The shape of the shape of the building. But if you notice, Andre, many modern buildings today are in the shape of a box. So, and what does the shape matter if it is circular, rectangular, box shape? If it is serving the purpose and it is doing what it's supposed to do. But they made a song, and that's the typical of the St. Lucia Labour Party. They can divert quite easily and mislead people into focusing on things that are irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. And so they referred to it as a box, and they would not go into the box because the box was conceptualized by the EWP, and it was Alan Chasney's project, and so anything Alan Chasney, they not.
And that box was a brand new building, correct?
A brand new building.
Okay. And how much it was spent on that, by the way? Do you remember?
I think we spent about 100-something thousand. I'll get a figure, but I don't want to give false figures. I know previously, when the UWP was in office under Stephenson King, we had spent something about like $36 million on it. Then the SLP came, and that's the old building, spent an additional $130 million. I think we have spent $100-something million on this box. And we were saying that for a few $1 million more, we could have completed downstairs, which would have been the St. Jude Hospital, and later complete upstairs, which would have been a university hospital, or a private hospital, which that would be specialized and so on. That'd be run by an international company where we provide services to start off what we would refer to as health tourism. But the government, in its wisdom, and of course, from what I was told by the report that was done, will require 6 to 7 months to complete it. But the new government came in and decided they're going in a different direction. On top of the $36 million spent by Stephenson King, the $130 million spent by Dr. Kenny Anthony, they have now budgeted over $200 million more to complete that hospital. Now, Andre, what I'm saying to you is, I have an old samurai, and you know what it's famous for? How derelict it is. Now, Andre, it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter which body man you send me to or what mechanic you send me. That samurai will never be a BMW. It will never be. You cannot make that hospital be the state-of-the-art hospital that we deserve in St. Lucia, despite the amount of money you spend on it. Never mind the amount of money. Look at the amount of time it has taken, and we don't even have a date in sight as to when it's going to be open.
So, give us a little clearer picture of what exactly was happening. When this current administration decided now to revert to the old hospital, is it that is the same structure that is there that they're using, and they just refurbishing that old St. Jude Hospital?
And they have to break down some walls, rebuild walls and things like that. But Andre, there are a number of limitations, and the height of the ceiling. You have to go back and do all the electrical work, because, like I told you, Andre, don't forget that was built in the 40s. The plumbing, I'm sure the kind of material that was used, I don't know if there was asbestos that have to be removed and replaced and so on. It is a more expensive undertaking, a more extensive undertaking than it would be to build to complete the new hospital.
So whose idea was it? The government certainly must have received some kind of advice.
Well, they received advice. You have people like John Peters, who's an engineer. You have this other gentleman who's an architect. I forget his name now. But these are the people who are affiliated and associated with the St. Lucia Labour Party and were given the advice. I remember. And
they were saying it's better to use the old building?
I remember Mr. John Peters gave a figure, I think about $50 million to complete, Well, I'm not even going to comment on the statements made by the politicians of the St. Lucia Labour Party, because they will, in the end, they will tell you they made those regular statements. They're not engineers or contractors. But I remember the representative for Labrie, Honorable Alva Baptiste, saying to us that we need to hurry up and complete the hospital. If we were to work on the old hospital, it would have been completed already, because all it needed was a coat of paint and some chemical. Those were his famous words. All that was needed was a coat of paint and some chemical. Well, 4.5 years later, they cannot find one coat of paint and they cannot find 1 gallon of chemical to complete the hospital. 4.5 years later, despite the fact that they have spent millions of dollars. They have borrowed from the Kuwaiti. Is it the Kuwaiti or well,
I believe so.
Yeah. Or the Arabs, some Arab government. Kuwait, okay.
Yeah.
They lent us, and we had the ceremony and everything, they lent us over $200 million to complete St. Jude. That is in addition to how much it has cost. So when you look at the St. Jude project as a whole, I heard Rick say that's the most expensive hospital in the world. You understand what I'm saying? And even we have hospitals that are far more extensive and so on, it still would be more expensive. And that kind of waste of resources, Andre, I mean, yes, I was in the politics, I was in government and so on, but let's think about it. That's hurting our country, Andre. We call ourselves a poor country. If you are poor, can you afford to waste resources like we do?
No.
And one of these days, Andre, we have to discuss government waste. And I'm not pretending that the United Workers' Party has not been guilty of that as well. We waste a lot in this country. And I think that has to be curtailed, because that money can go to better use to serve the people of this country. But in the case of the St. Lucia Labour Party, they are practicing that kind of wastage, playing petty politics at the cost of the people. And when I say the cost, not just the financial cost, Andre, up to now, people are at the stadium, a stadium that was never built to be a hospital, so it can never fully be efficient as a hospital. Not to mention that the stadium itself is dilapidated, it's in a deteriorating condition. And so you have nurses and doctors, Ojal, operating on the far less than ideal working conditions. You have patients who have to endure. Now, Andre, I always say that you come here today, you're well, you're fit, and you complain sometimes it's too cold, it's too hot, the chair too hard. Can you imagine if you're sick? That's the time you're looking for comfort, when you're sick. And you have to endure the worst conditions. And that applies to both OKU, which is a new hospital, but how good is the new hospital when you go there and you have to sit in the hallway on a chair, or you have to lie on the floor in the hallway and so on. I mean, that's subhuman. Our people deserve better than that. And any government ought to strive to do the utmost to ensure that our people are not subjected to such conditions. And so it is almost, I don't want to say criminal, but callous,
Sorry to disturb you. So in the final analysis, when we take all these monies now, $200-something million to finish the old structure, do you think it will be an old structure / new structure, meaning every piece of wood, whatever the case may be, would be replaced now with new material? Is that what's going to happen in the final analysis?
Well, they're going to retain some of the structure that exists right now.
So there's still something there to retain?
Well, because, and then again, do not forget, Andre, while it is concrete, even concrete has a lifespan.
Yes.
After so many years, concrete begin to deteriorate. And so these are the things that you have to understand. And when you go back to that old building, that will bring up your maintenance costs as well, because of the fact that it is old already. And so I think it would be a far wiser, more rational position to just complete the hospital. I mean, at the end of the day,
you mean complete
the new
box
hospital, what they refer to as the box.
Okay, so construction on the old structure, has that begun?
Yes, it's ongoing right now.
So you think they're going to stop that now to complete?
They won't, because there's all kind of petty pride and political considerations involved. But you see, but even then, there is, apart from the main box, there are about 2 other boxes where we were going to have like the rehab Center, and there's another one. I can't remember now what it would be used for, but they have completed them. And these are the first things that are going to be ready, because Andre, they were in advanced state of readiness, and so they will be moving into them as by the time they open the hospital.
So what you're saying is that the box will have a
part of it.
A part of it will be used.
Will be used, yes.
For the okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying the main structure, which would have housed the entire hospital and so on, and be far more ideal in terms of its design and its efficacy in terms of serving as a hospital, that has been abandoned. Now, there's no price to pay for those things. You just come into office and you just, arbitrarily make those kinds of decisions, and never mind how much it costs the taxpayers, never mind how much of the country's resources that goes to waste and so on. We just do those things, and nobody answers for that. But these are the things that I think that we have to look closely at, and while there is nothing in place to reprimand or to hold anybody responsible for, I think we the voters should hold our representatives responsible for things like that.
We're talking about that. So has the government ever given an explanation? Because whoever advised them, right, they should have passed on that advice and let the public know, well, this is what we were told and this sort of thing, acting on the advice of so and so. Has your party or the opposition ever found out the reasons for that decision to revert to the old structure?
Well, they've always referred to the new structure as the box and whatever. And so they have not given any plausible explanation that makes sense to me. And I don't think they need to. However, Andre, fortunately, this is the year of accountability. I'm hoping the year of accountability does not go similar to the year of infrastructure. Okay? And so that we will, in fact, see the government being more accountable. And here is a case where they can account to us as to why that decision, and to justify that inordinate amount of money that is being spent on an old structure that will never be a perfect structure because it was not designed in the first place for a hospital. Give us an explanation for this. And when you look at it, Andre, we are spending far more money than we ought to by making that decision. So let us see the justification that they will give us for that. And not to mention, Andre, they have denied the people of St. Lucia at this point in time about 3 years of high-level health care that they would have had the government decide to just continue the project and complete what they refer to as the box in 6 to 7 months. They have denied St. Lucians 3 years of better health facilities in this country, plus the amount of resources that has been squandered. So these are the things that we have to look at. And so I was talking about, the stupidity, and I call it what it is, the stupidity in that behavior, that practice, when it costs so much, Now, Andre, if you're going to build a community center, take, for example, the constituency I'm most familiar with, Grosley. If you say you're going to build it in Marsad, or you're going to build it in Casablanca, you're going to build it in Wastage, except for the fact that you're not going on a precipice, something, that's neither here nor there. I'd probably advocate for Marsad, that's closer to my home, But, at the end of the day, it is the prerogative of the current government to carry out the assessment and do. That's minor as far as I'm concerned. But those major decisions where so much money is being wasted, so much is being denied in terms of better conditions and all of that I think is callous on the part of the government and unacceptable. Now, Andre, let me just mention a couple other projects that were stopped, In ancillary canneries, we had Senator Dominic Fede, who was the parliamentary representative and who happened to have been the Minister of Tourism. Now, I know he was working with me to, upgrade the Grosley waterfront for tourism purposes. Soufre, work had started already at the Hummingbird Beach Park. You had other projects that were going to be done. Again, we know Soufre is a tourism hub in St. Lucia. Of course, as Minister of Tourism and as parliamentary representative for ancillary canneries, naturally, he wanted to have his constituency in the fray. And, of course, between Castries and Soufre, you have to go through ancillary. Ancillary already started their fish fry and so on a Friday night. And so he was looking to enhance the product. And he had started doing some work. And what he had already done was to commence the construction of the Ancillary Village Hotel, and that's near the waterfront, Andre, where tourists could come, because, unlike Gros Islet and Soufrière and so on, you don't have many Airbnbs in Ancillary, you don't have many guest houses, many hotels, any hotel in Ancillary. So that in itself, if someone wanted to come and experience a village life and actually be there, to experience it firsthand, they built a village hotel. That remained closed up to today. Now, I want to hear the argument you can advance to me to tell me that a project like this was unwarranted, unnecessary, and not beneficial to the people. Andre, I'm thinking, forget the tourists, I'm thinking when they come, the jobs that will be created, the revenue that it would generate for the community. And given the presence of that, the ancillary services for taxi drivers in the area, for souvenir vendors in the area, for restaurants in the area, and so on, to benefit, that remains closed. There's also the Ancillary Seafood Restaurant. Now, Ancillary pride themselves, they started something similar to Gros Islet Friday night, but they pride themselves on, specializing in seafood. So, they call it a seafood fry, and, they branded it differently. And so they were going to have an Ancillary Seafood Restaurant. That too has been stopped. Now tell me, now, can Wayne Girard justify that? What, because Dominic failed it? Dominic has his business running, making his money. It is the people that have Ancillary would have benefited from that. You understand what I'm saying? So I cannot, fathom the logics, the wisdom, or the foresight in those kinds of decisions, but these are the things that happen. Now, I'm going to talk about Ancillary, I'm going to talk about Bexon, Mico South, Sourcel, Saltibus, and to talk about Gros Islet. Now, I remember previously when I was in my first term, I started building a human resource center for Gros Islet. A community that is so big, so populated, we did not have a proper community center. So I started building a human resource development center. Of course, my term came to an end. I was booted out before the project was completed. The Labour Party came in. Honorable Emma Hippolyte became the parliamentary representative, and she refused to complete the project. I guess because I started it. Fortunately, for Gros Islet, I was returned while she was booted out as the parliamentary representative, and I completed the project. Now, talk about utility of the project, Andre. I challenge you to try to get use of that facility anytime this year. You'll be lucky if you can get to book it for any time this year, which means that it's not even adequate. You understand what I'm saying? Funerals, weddings, concerts, all kinds of things take place there. So much so now that they are building the Gros Islet police station, the police station is housed there. So the justification for it speaks for itself. I don't have to justify that project. Never mind the fact that it has not been put to full use as was intended, because we have a theater there that is underutilized. We had a section of it that would have become a music lab, Andre, where when I leave here this morning and you play your music, probably half of your music would have come from Gros Islet, because the guys could have gone there to record and to do those things. Now, these things can be expensive, equipment and all that, but all of that will be provided. Now, not just the facility to do that, but the fact that we will have people trained as sound engineers, the different aspects of music production, people will be trained in doing so. We're also thinking of, from that hub as well, to have a community radio station. Tell people what's happening. The reach wouldn't be far, but to serve the community. So, Andre, when you're looking for a new announcer, a new DJ, or somebody who got their little feet wet there, you go and pluck them from there and so on. And that was the whole idea, But I guess things change, times change, reps change, policy change. I do not know if it has changed for the better, but let's see. But I think that the facility is underutilized. It's not serving its true purpose and being put to its full potential. But that again is for the people of Gros Islet to see, and for whoever is vying in the next election to become parliamentary representative to look at and determine what direction they're going to go into. And so that was completed. and it is serving its purpose now. But Andre, one of the major problems we have, one of the problems you have with me, Andre, is that when I have to come to meet the opposition, I always get late. And you scolded me after the program the other day for that already, and so on. And the same old excuse remains: traffic. Andre, we were doing a project to alleviate the traffic situation in the north. And yes, we were talking about me here now, but Andre, thousands of people who live in the north, thousands of people who commute to and from the north for work, for business, whatever, suffer loss of time, frustration, and all of those things because they have to go through the traffic. We were building that highway in the Rodney Bay area, putting in additional lanes, overpass, roundabouts, and so on. They stopped the project. Now, they stopped the project because there was corruption and all that kind of thing. Now, Andre, I think St. Lucians are the most tolerant people that I know here. People who are most accepting of nonsense are St. Lucians. Because, yes, Andre, if there is corruption, I agree, you have to do something about it.
And by the way, what was the alleged corruption?
Well,
did they explain?
Well, I think they looked at the cost of the project, who was doing the project, who was supposed to be benefiting from the project. I can assure you I didn't benefit anything from it, Andre. As a parliamentary representative, I have no benefit in that. But they stopped the project.
So has that been proven, by the way?
Andre, it's 3, and we're going to 4 years now, Andre. Going to 4 years now. You in the office, you have access to all the documents, all the files. The Minister of Infrastructure has not changed. So where is the corruption? Prove the corruption.
By the way, was that one of the issues that the special prosecutor had to deal with?
Supposed to. Now, and of course, Fresh Start was the contractor. So there's a connection that they made between Fresh Start and Guy Joseph. And so now, Andre, now you see the disrespect that is shown to St. Lucians by the St. Lucian Labour Party is something we must take a moment to look at. That same Fresh Start was accused of corruption again, where they didn't have DCA approval, they didn't have this, they didn't have that for the housing project. And of course the fact that Guy is associated with a shareholder of Fresh Start, so they stopped the housing project. The same minister, Richard Frederick, who stopped the housing project, is now shamelessly admitting that he has to eat his vomit and re-engage the same Fresh Start. Yes. Andre,
you're kidding me.
That is a loss to you and I. I mean, never mind that I have no intention of going to buy a house in Talvan and Shock. But it's a loss to you and I. Our taxpayers' dollars were involved in those projects. Okay? Now the projects cost more. Because don't forget that Fresh Start had a contract before COVID. I have engaged in some construction since COVID. Andre, everything has gone up since then. So, with the passage of time, you have increases, plus the arbitrary halting of the contract had a cost as well. Look at the highway in Rosalie. It would have cost about $15 million for Fresh Start to construct it.
You're talking about the additional lanes, etc., etc., right. The roundabout.
The roundabout, about $15 million, the overpass and so on. $15 million. Andre, Fresh Start is somewhere laughing now. Because you see, the victimization that is being engaged in sometimes, you're spiting yourself when you do things like that. Albeit, at the end of the day, when I say you're spiting yourself, when the government does it, we are the ones who pay the price. I just want to explain to you that Fresh Start agreed and signed a contract to complete that project for $15 million. And they would have gotten bust. With COVID and the increase in all of the prices, the contract was already signed. They were bounded by that contract and had to complete, even if they had to take a loss. The government came in and just arbitrarily ended the contract, fired them.
Because of alleged corruption. And now you're saying...
And now they're looking to re-engage them.
Re-engage Fresh Start.
Fresh Start. But you know what? Now, because the contract was broken, they have to pay Fresh Start for the work that was already done. Now hear this. The work that was already done has to be estimated under today's prevailing conditions with the prices of today.
So it's going to be more.
So the block that is there that was 90 cents is now 120. You have to pay 120 for it, whereas Fresh Start only paid 90 cents for it. So it is going to cost the government more than $15 million to reimburse Fresh Start. And after they have done that, they have to find the money now to pay for what it will cost to complete the project.
And you're talking about the roads?
The highway, yes.
Oh, so they haven't given up on that?
They have not given up on that. And whether they complete it in time, because we see, now, you know, they used to call the Honorable Stephenson King heavy roller. They now call him the lazy roller because, you know, he takes so much time to do anything. Look at the Millennium Highway. That an inordinate amount of time. That project started while I was in government, Andre. It's going to 4 years now since I'm out of government, and that project cannot be completed. I use that Millennium Highway to go to my farm. I can tell you it has not been completed. And again, don't ask me when it will be completed. There's no date in sight, you know.
I think he did say last year June, but that never happened.
Andre, I have a little advice for you. Don't repeat those things.
No, that's what he said.
Don't repeat those things, you know. You see dates given to you by politicians, don't repeat that. It will not be.
Well, here's another one.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister said that St. Jude would be finished this year.
Oh.
That's another one.
Let's hope. But, you know, let me just say this. I will not be surprised if it is. And that will be 4 years behind time. However, I can tell you, as much as there are delays in government projects, not just projects, anything government does drags. Takes an inordinate amount of time for every government. Election year, Andre, we work magic in this country. I can tell you that. The amount of work I have seen done in my time, before my time, currently, the amount of work that I've seen done in an election year is amazing. And I ask myself, if we were to work at that rate throughout, how much further we could have been as a country. So they may have people working around the clock, which will cost you a lot more, you know, to ensure that they complete it in time for election. But they have failed already on that project, Andre. They have failed by 3 years already, and a couple $100 million. They have failed by that amount already. So it doesn't matter what. They are a colossal failure as far as St. Jude is concerned, you know. And so when I look at what has happened there, Andre, as a parliamentary representative, if I were to be parliamentary representative of Grosley at the moment, I could have done well with that additional wastage that has taken place to pay Fresh, rather than that money going to Fresh Start. I could have hired Fresh Start to build additional roads in Grosley.
And by the way, you're saying that Fresh Start will be the one to recommence that project.
Well,
roads
based
and so
on what they have said, they are in discussion with Fresh Start. Yeah. But in any case,
and they said that they have to pay Fresh Start.
Whether it is Fresh Start that they re-engage or not, they have to pay Fresh Start for the work that has been done. And it will cost more than $15 million for a project that is not complete, that would have been completed for $15 million.
Now, since we're talking about that project, just educate us and explain to us how this was supposed to help alleviate the traffic issues.
Okay. So you had more lanes, like 4 lanes. And so people going into Rodney Bay, for example.
Would it have been similar to the dual carriageway?
That's right.
Okay.
And so you would have had a roundabout. And I'm not the best person to explain to you how that works, but with a roundabout, you have better flow of traffic. So you won't have obstruction by vehicles going into Rodney Bay, hindering vehicles that are going straight through, you know, that kind of thing.
Excuse my ignorance again. So at what point of the north would that development actually have started, and where would it end?
Okay, it started somewhere in the area near the gas station, what used to be called the Volney gas station.
Okay, got it.
And it would go all the way close to the Bonte Bridge. Okay, so that would have made a lot of the difference. Now, let me just explain to you. You have Redry Orchard, you have Redry Park, that are residential areas on that other side of the road. And you have people coming from those areas, going to the shopping mall, going to the banks, going to the business, restaurants, and so on, crossing the road all the time. that is another hindrance to traffic.
Yes.
Not to mention the danger.
Mm-hmm.
The pedestrian overpass would have solved that problem. So you just
Also, there were plans for an overpass there as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I was part of the discussion because I was parliamentary representative. I remember now you see we need to stop that and let governments know that that is not acceptable. Because once they come in, before they come in, Andre is corrupt, Spider is corrupt. They come in, we carry out investigation, pay their friends hundreds of thousands of dollars to carry out investigations. And while allegations and accusations that they just make about people the way they tarnish, politicians have a very dismal image here in St. Lucia. Thanks in main to the St. Lucia Labour Party, you know. Now I'll tell you something. Even one of my most admired politicians, George Odlum, who was a member of the St. Lucia Labour Party, played his part in that as well. The St. Lucia Labour Party is notorious for maligning, accusing and making all kind of derogatory remarks about people, Andre, I've had my experience with the St. Lucia Labour Party as well. When I limited office in 2011, I remember we started what we call a beach park between Sandals and Pigeon Point. And they accused me of getting involved in all kind of corruption.
Without merit.
Right. And so that the public will realize that all you're doing is making claims for political reasons, wasting taxpayers' money, because they pay their friends a handsome amount of money to carry out those investigations, Andre.
So, Mr. Montoute, moving forward, assuming your party were to win the next election, don't you think that would be a good time to get all these things straightened out, especially setting up some kind of mechanism that in the future, when these accusations are being made, whether it's against your party, even the Labour Party, that at some point these findings would be made public?
Well, I'll tell you something. What happened, just as I am doing now.
To the media? To the media?
To the media. And on platform. But it was convenient for the St. Lucia Labour Party, and in particular Kenson Kazimi, to run with it, okay? To tarnish my reputation, okay? And to allege wrongdoing on my part, okay?
Do you think any of those things had anything to do with you losing the election? Or losing the seat,
Hard to say. But if there are people who believed it, Andre, if you believe I'm a kidnapper, I can see you voting for someone you think is a kidnapper. You know, but that's why I say to you, I'm not very eager to get back into this business, honestly. I'm not. You know, and today he's talking about the reason why some people will not get involved is because of, well, you're guilty of it. Not only you're surrounded by people who are guilty of doing it. His mentor, that's what he practices politically. Sorry. That's what his mentor practices politically. Richard Frederick. That is, I don't know if you know that. That is Kenson Kazimi's mentor, Andre.
Oh, really?
Well, he said so. That's not my assertion. Kenson Kazimi said that Richard Frederick is his mentor.
Oh.
So maybe that explains a few things that we are hearing about him these days. You know? So, when you do that, you don't know, someday the shoe will be on the other foot, Andre. He is now in the seat. And things are being said about him. Look at how he's reacting to it. You know, Kenson Kazimi once questioned the fact that I was driving a Lexus. Now, Andre, there's no mystery to it, you know.
Do you still drive a Lexus?
Well, my wife has one, so I drive it. My wife has one, so I drive it from time to time. Because that Lexus crashed.
Okay. So that was another Lexus then?
Yeah. But the one I drive occasionally now is my wife's own.
Okay.
Now, Andre, let me just explain to you. Because there's nothing mysterious about it, and I'm not embarrassed about anything put into the Lexus. You remember when the ministers got an increase in salary, they also got with that duty-free vehicles. I mean, you may want to, after I leave, announce that that's the only way I could have driven the Lexus I driven, and that's a fact, you know. So, I purchased a Lexus, and it was a used Lexus. Okay. I had to take a loan from the Teachers Credit Union, which I'm a member of up to today, you know. And so, when he raised questions about the fact I'm driving Lexus now, I'm government, I'm driving Lexus and so on, I thought to myself, a cheap shot. However, as a public figure, Andre, you have access to the people's resources. You are in a sense a custodian of their resources. You have jurisdiction over it, how it is utilized, how it is spent, and so on. And you being a public figure, they have a right to scrutinize you and to ask questions of you. You, Andre, might tell me, go to hell, that's not my business. But if you get involved in politics and asking me to vote for you, it is my business to say, Andre, where did you get that headphone?
Mm-hmm.
You simply say, well, my brother bought it for me, especially an expensive looking one like what you have there. My brother bought it for me. So I said, you can go to the St. Lucia Teachers Credit Union and find out that I have a loan with them that I'm paying for my vehicle, and I got it less than the normal value because I got it duty free. I explained that because I thought Kenson had a right to ask that question. Whether he was being malicious or not, he had a right to ask that question. When Emma Hippolyte raised questions about my farm, or suggested that maybe I was involved in by farm or whatever it was, I explained on platform that I took a loan with the St. Lucia Development Bank to purchase my farm. Never mind at the time, Andre, my records were not exactly up to date. I wrote to the bank and said to them that should any media person come, I am authorizing that they disclose and divulge the information. Of course, they didn't do it, but I gave the information as to the source of it. If you want to know where my house comes from, Andre, I can tell you. I can account for everything that I have. Now, right now, Andre, if you come and question where I got that pen from, I'll tell you where to go. You understand what I'm saying?
Or the fancy phone.
Or the fancy phone that I have there, I'll tell you where to go. But at the time, Andre, it was your right to question that. Now, we have to hold our public officials to a high standard. There's the Integrity Commission. So if you now, knowing a little bit about my life, my background and so on, find it strange that all of a sudden I have acquired wealth, I have property, I have a vehicle and so on, and you find it strange, there might be a perfect explanation for it, but that is a matter that is worth being questioned, and I am supposed to clarify and provide the information to let it be known that there was nothing untoward, there was nothing illicit, nothing unlawful, nothing illegal done to acquire what I have. You had property here and there, and you had vehicles and so on. We know your salary, Andre. Everybody knows a minister's salary. If you want to know, you can find out. So how have you acquired that? Maybe for example, I have a business. My family has a business, and I make my money from there. Simple as that. That's what he's supposed to do. Come out and explain to the public. Don't take umbrage that you question as to how you came by what you have. You understand what I'm saying? The people, people have a right to know.
By the way, he's given an explanation already.
Not right. Can you play the clip that I gave you, Andre?
Sure.
Let's hear if he actually gave an explanation, Andre. or was he just complaining about the fact that he was taking the task?
Kenson Casimir has criticized the United Workers' Party, the UWP, for what he describes as personal attacks against him and his family. Speaking at Monday's pre-cabinet presser, Casimir expressed deep concern over the nature of social media posts made by UWP supporters. He specifically addressed a recent post from a
I don't know if that's the clip he's referring to, but more than one property was mentioned in that clip. Plus the fact that he has bought a new vehicle. Just like when I bought my Lexus, Andre, and he questioned it, somebody is questioning it, Andre.
But from what he's saying, he acquired a loan. That's what he's saying.
Okay. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that somebody has an issue with young people going to the bank and that is not the issue. The issue is, how did you acquire what you have? That is the issue. Okay? So just like he's saying,
I'm asking you, I'm a little confused. It sounds to me like you're saying there's something else. It's not It's not just the land. There are other issues.
Yes, there are other issues.
Okay.
Okay, for example, Andre, since what I read was that since Kenson Kazimi became a parliamentary representative, he has acquired several properties. He has acquired a vehicle. Okay? And even duty-free, that vehicle costs over $100,000. How did you come about this on the salary that you're making? That is what the people are asking. Not that a young person cannot go to the bank and get a loan. And that's not the issue. Don't confuse the issue. Okay? And to talk about it being unsavory and so on, it wasn't unsavory when you're asking it of me. I explained to you where I got mine. Explain to the people where they got yours. So the people you claim who know you and so on, and who comfort you and all of that, there are those who know you who choose to ask questions. Answer the question. So you now are putting a cloud over the whole thing by reacting in the way that you're reacting. Well, you can simply just clear the air. Simply clear the air. Let them know that we politicians, I'm not the one anymore, Andre, we politicians don't steal money from the treasury, or we don't misappropriate public funds and so on. We work for what we have, or we inherit what we have, or we get what we have through legal means. That's what you have to do.
Yes. So, Mr. Montoute, earlier you spoke about your experience. You said about your relationship with a credit union, the bank, whatever.
No, I didn't tell you relationship. I told you I got a loan.
Right.
I explained to you how, because it was duty-free,
right,
I was able to afford to get a loan from the Teachers Credit Union to purchase, I think.
Right.
He should have said, on the question of the $250,000 land.
I think it's 273. I see that.
Okay, I got a loan from XYZ. Andre, that's your personal business. It's not his personal. It's not personal for him. He's a public figure. You come under scrutiny. Andre, even your health, we're supposed to know about you. Because I'm not going to vote for you if you have mental issues. I'm not going to vote for you if you have seizures or whatever. I'm not going to vote for you. I'm not discriminating you, Andre, but I'm just saying, if I know that you are terminally ill, for example, because Andre, I could be sitting here with you and I've been diagnosed with cancer, I have a year to live. Okay? I am not going to vote for you if I know that about you. That is my business. That's my right to know. Okay? As a matter of fact, that is another thing I'll push for. That when you, Andre, want to present yourself to me to become okay, and you know, we were talking about the discontinuation, and we went at length on the St. Jude's Hospital, so I will not, I have that on my list as well, but we have spoken of the St. Jude's Hospital and what it has cost St. Lucian's, that it has been discontinued and so on.
The roads,
and all of those things. So I'm saying to the current government, it's not too late. I know they have come around on some of them, you know, but it's not too late to complete it for the benefit of the people. Complete those projects. It would have done good for our economy as well, because I mean, people don't realize it, but the roads, Andre, contributes greatly to our economy, because you have to transport things. The productivity of the country has something to do with it, and so on. And when I upgraded some of the roads in my constituency in the last term that I spent, I mentioned that I upgraded more than 70 roads in the constituency of Grosley. Some of the SLPs.
The first thing I got to know was the corruption. The corruption that was in the at the time was La Coucomise. Tractors disappeared, and y'all were in power. Maybe not your time, and I grew up. Then the UN scandal came up and all of that with Bousquet and all of that. Then when you came into power, there was a gentleman named Jimmy Henry. And Jimmy Henry was accused, he didn't even stay long. He came in on the 12th of September 2016 as a senator. Do you remember that? He lost, he was in the Dennery North. He went up in that seat and he lost his seat. But you all made him a senator. And
seabed because of the likes of Kenyanton. You remember that? Was there a thorough investigation by the Labour Party? No. Let me remind her of Frenwell. Was there an investigation? No. By the Labour Party? No. Let me remind her where a sitting government minister of the Labour Party, past government minister, the representative for Soufre, falsifies qualifications, said he had a PhD, only to find out that that was not true. Let me remind her of that. Let me remind her of the disrespect by the Labour Party when Sir John Compton retired from active politics and he was denied a parking spot in the boulevard. Let me remind the last caller of that. And to say people accusing the Labour Party of corruption, the St. Lucia Labour Party have never come clean. Leaders upon leaders of the Labour Party, including this current Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, Philip Japier, never can take decisive action against his indisciplined members such as Richard Frederick, who on a weekly basis, every Thursday, goes on his talk show and insults and disrespects private citizens and exposing their private documents in public. Have you heard Philip Japier ever come out and make one strong statement of correction to Richard Frederick? When Richard Frederick was at a meeting of the Labour Party in somewhere in Bex or wherever it was, and referred to Dr. Merle Clark as a Flabo Zelev, all because Dr. Merle Clark stood up for her members, the doctors, and said that our healthcare situation is the worst that it's ever have been. Richard Frederick came on a Labour Party platform and referred to her as a Flabo Zelev. When they questioned Philip Pierre about that statement and said to him, look here, can you just talk to your government minister? He said he did not hear the statement, and he was right there when Richard Frederick made the statement. So that caller is just being hypocritical and just attempting to be biased and try to deflect. And there's so many issues confronting I'm facing St. Lucians.